So hi everybody, this is Philip VanDusen again. I am here with Rob Wallace, my good friend Rob Wallace of Best of Breed Branding Consortium. And on the Brand Muse interview series, we talk about the power of design, the power of brand building, both for your own personal brand as well as brands of your clients if you're a creative professional or if you run a business, building your own business brand. Rob Wallace is a very close friend of mine, and we've known each other now for years. He's an incredibly accomplished branding executive, brilliant mind, and I'm actually going to read some of his biography creds because there's no way you can commit as much of this as he's done to memory. But as I said, Rob is the managing partner of Best of Breed Branding Consortium, and he'll talk a little bit more about what that is. He is the managing partner, or was the managing partner, of Wallace Church, a branding and design agency in Manhattan for over 30 years, and advised huge clients like Procter Gamble, Nestle, Pfizer, Colgate-Palmolive, Revlon, Target. I mean, the list goes on and on. Bacardi, Microsoft. He's worked with everybody. So the guy's got some certainly serious creds. He's been a board member of the Design Management Institute. He's lectured at over 50 industry events around the globe, lectures at Columbia Business School, as well as Georgetown University and the School of Visual Arts in New York. More importantly, almost than all of this, is the fact that Rob is the penultimate expert on the ROI, the return on investment of design in branding, and has written the book on this. And he's actually going to share some of that book with you as a PDF. So stay tuned to find out where you can receive that as a little bit of a bonus. But so welcome, Rob. Thank you very much for joining me.
Philip, I'm delighted to be here, and I want to applaud you and thank you from the industry's perspective for the work that you continue to do to further our cause in the industry.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And so everybody listen up. What Rob says is gold. So talk a little bit about your early journey, Rob, just so people can understand kind of how you came up.
Yeah, sure. So I cut my teeth at gray advertising. And at that point, we were doing quantification of every dollar invested in advertising to determine how we could justify our crazy fees back in those days. And we did a pretty comprehensive study, found out that advertising returned an investment of about $4 for every dollar invested, so 4 times ROI. But that was when we had 3 networks on TV, and now we have hundreds and hundreds of them. The one thing is the absolute connection with consumers at the moment of their purchase decision, specifically for consumer products, is brand identity and package design. So that became my focus, joined Stan Church about 30 years ago, and continued that message throughout the life cycle of the design industry. I'm very proud to have been part of that mission.
So did you study design or marketing when you were in school? How did you come to connect with Stan?
I'm a copywriter by background, so that's why I got to Gray. Found out quickly that it was much more lucrative to be in the strategy side, and you had much more impact on how things are moving if you were very much in the very front of the branding process. My connection with Stan is like the old-fashioned way. I inherited Wallace Church. My dad was the original founder of Wallace Church and Stan's original partner. So I came to them. They were 2 designers without really a strategic underpinning. So I came to them with the opportunity maybe of offering some of that strategic insight to what was purely a graphic design firm at that point.
And so they were just doing graphic design, and you brought in kind of the tip, what I like to call the tip of the spear. So the strategy which informs design and drives design and product development through an organization.
And a willingness to really differentiate ourselves from other competitors. At that point, there were 15 or 20 design firms of our size and caliber. Now there are hundreds, literally hundreds of them in the United States and globally who are competing for the same level of work. So it was our goal to create a meaningful and well-differentiated offering to our potential clients.
So talk a little bit more about that. There is, as you said, I think, a proliferation of what people are calling, trademarkable processes of strategy. And there is to my knowledge anyway, very little differentiation. And a lot of it stems from basic consumer insight marketing started by Walter Landor in the 50s or whatever. And a lot of people have kind of patterned what they've done, nuances off of that kind of approach. So how did you drive differentiation for your agency? And do you see any differentiation happening now?
Yeah, we are a hyper-proliferated industry and a greatly under-differentiated industry. Be honest with yourself. Go out and take a look at your top 10 or 15 competitors and really analyze what you're sending out. Everyone has a 4 or 5 step process. Everyone does beautiful work. Everyone has a portfolio of recent and relevant expertise in the categories that they're working on. It's very, very difficult for clients to differentiate between them and find a partner that adds a unique and specific value. My goal at Wallace Church was to have recent and relevant expertise in virtually every product industry. So we could say, yes, we've worked in cosmetics, and we've worked in liquor, and we've worked in beer, and we've worked in toothpaste, and we've worked with, global brands at the highest caliber, the largest brands in every one of those industries. But the way that we approached it was through quantifying our value. For every dollar our clients invested with us, we wanted to prove that we returned that value in incremental profit, in multiple times of the amount of money that we were spending. And that began a quest that lasted for 30 years, and I'm still on it today, looking to quantify the value of what we do and maybe even be compensated for that value. Once we take accountability, and I don't know that anyone in the industry is doing this, once we take accountability for the value that we provide, then we might have more access to be compensated based on that value, based on that that revenue that we're bringing into the organization. Consider that with your existing clients. Consider that with your prospective clients. I don't think anyone in our industry is willing to stand up above that radar screen of accountability and say, I generate value. I only want to be compensated on a small percentage of that incremental profit that I bring to your brand. Believe me, that will change the dialogue that you're having with your existing clients and your potential clients. It will no longer be thought about as an hourly rate or a discount on what you had done last time, or can you bid within this budget parameter and show us how the lowest, fee structure is going to add the most value? Folks, that's a race to the bottom. And there are other organizations who have already won that race. And we as an industry need to separate ourselves from that way of thinking and that way of being valued and reverse it to determine how we can be compensated purely on the pure profit that we generate.
So that being said, I mean, the ways of quantifying that are always, or getting visibility to the return on the investment is, I think, as I've read your writings, the hardest part, right? Unless you get true visibility to the financial data that is coming from post design or post redesign of a product, or post advertising campaign marketing lift, unless you are getting those financial numbers, how can you attribute what you've done to those things? And a lot of times companies are doing a number of different things at the same time. So then how can you differentiate, the lift that you received from this packaging redesign or this identity design from the other marketing that they're doing?
Yeah, two insights there, and the first one was, how do you get access to the data that you need in order to quantify your value? You have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And believe me, not every firm will give that to you, but not enough people have asked for it. And so if they hear that question over and over and over again, they're going to say, wow, something's changing here. And maybe there's a value to me, to the company, to the CPG firm, to providing access to that. We sign NDAs. We're not going to share that information with anyone. The only reason that we want it is to, again, prove the value of what we're doing. I think, again, initiating that conversation will have insight. The second question is more complicated. How do we extract all of the advertising and the sales promotion and the social media and all the other work that goes into an integrated branding program. We spent our whole careers integrating design with those elements so that the consumer has one message at every touch point. How do we extract those things? There is a moment of opportunity, specifically during a redesign effort, where everything's the same. The advertising, the sales promotion, the merchandising, the dynamics in the category of whether the whole category is going up or down, whether we're on a rising or a lowering tide. During the redesign process, everything being similar, the only thing changing is branding and brand identity. Now we can extract that. So it's a true A/B test during the redesign process, where you take one retailer, Kroger, for example, you put all of the new product in 10 or 20 stores, you leave all of the old product in 10 or 20 stores, and the remainder of the stores go through the traditional flow-through process that they normally would. You take true sales values of only those 10 stores that have all of the new product on there versus the stores that have all the old product. The results of that test, it's about a 7 to 8 week test, depending on the frequency in which your product is being purchased. We like to see 2 or maybe 3 turns of product during that period of time. But the results of that test are statistically accurate and projectable to what will happen when the new identity is in the marketplace in its entirety. Now that's exciting. That's exciting. Now, how do you go and seed that within the company? The marketers are interested, executive management are interested, but you know who's most interested? Are salespeople who want to go back to Kroger or to Albertsons and say, my products is generating more sales, give me more shelf
space. Yeah, right. There you go.
So that's how I've seeded that within the culture. We get sales, marketing, design collectively together. Sometimes, I swear, this is the only time meetings where all those organizations are actually in the same room having the same impact. So at least we're bringing together the mindsets of those organizations with something that really makes their heart tick, which is, how do we optimize our value for our brand?
Well, that leads me to actually a really interesting question. So there's the project, so doing the design, the review, all of that sort of aspect of it. And then there's the ROI evaluation meeting where you're getting these different kind of divisional responsibilities in the room at the same time. And you're totally right. That doesn't happen that often. Do you compartmentalize those activities when you're working with a client? Do you say, this is the project work, and then now we're going to set a separate meeting with these participants and we're going to review the before state, the after state, and really dig into a little bit of whether this was a success or not?
Yeah. Our ultimate goal is to protect our primary client, meaning the design management. And more of our clients have fewer and fewer design managers, or their impact in the organization is changing. Now that fluctuates. There are some companies like PepsiCo where design has a tremendous impact on the executive level decision making. But many, many more of our clients are very much on the opposite end. If design is still thought of as an implementation vehicle, I want to help elevate that mindset within the organization. So I want to elevate design thinking and design mindedness by promoting our existing design clients to that level so that they have voice and impact with senior level marketing and senior level sales teams. That will give them the credibility and eventually the autonomy for making their own decisions. The other thing that's happening, and this is not news to anyone, is that design management is being undervalued because their best practices aren't being honored. I just came back from a meeting with a very, very large CPG firm that at one point had 21 people in their design staff and now has 5 people on the design staff. And those design folks are doing the same level of work. It's just so much more. They don't have time to be strategic. They only have time to do what's most urgent and not what's most important. Hopefully we'll delete that and go back.
That's okay. No, we don't have to.
They only have time to do what's most urgent and not what's most important, and that's a very valuable thing to differentiate. What's most urgent is what's on your docket every day. You've got to be able to click that stuff off. Mm-hmm. But what's most important is how do you create a long-term best practice so that your best practices aren't violated in the future. That's the reason that you want to do this design quantification. Because believe me, tomorrow they will say, hey, congratulations, you got $600 for every dollar we invested. Tomorrow I want 700, and the next day I want 800. And by the way, I don't have time to do all that work and that process that you went through in the beginning, all that upfront design research work. I don't have time. I promised something to Bentonville in 3 weeks. Do what you can in 3 weeks. What now the design manager can say, emboldened by this methodology, is I will do the absolute best job that I have within the resources you're giving me, but I will not be held accountable for its results. I'll do the best I can, but I won't be held accountable for those results. Memorize that term, memorize that way of speaking. Because as soon as you say that, people will say, what do you mean? Well, I'll be held accountable for the work that we do if it follows my best practice, if I've got the proper time and the proper resources on your side of the table who are design-minded and design-literate and listen to my point of view. And if we're going to circumvent those, I understand. I'm here to do the best job that I can, but I'm going to take that case study and my best practice case study, and we're going to go to the CMO and the CEO together, and we're going to prove the value of doing it right the first time. It sounds, I'm being glib a little bit now. It sounds a little confrontational. There are ways that you can certainly make it more cohesive and less confrontational, but the message needs to be coming across that design management has a best practice. They accept responsibility, they accept accountability, but only when their best practices are followed. When their best practices are thrown aside, it's no longer your job to take accountability, and your organization should know that.
And I think you're talking about kind of at a macro level, you're talking about design has, to a certain extent over time, adopted a culture of victimhood and being taken advantage of. And as a creative director or leader of creative departments, you do hear a lot of victimhoodness from designers because they feel like they're being taken advantage of. So it sounds like what you're talking about is becoming more adept at speaking the language of your target, the sales department, the marketing department, and also becoming more proactive about putting a stake in the ground for what you will be held accountable for and what you won't. And if you do achieve or you are given the resources and the time and the ability to do the processes that you believe in and that work, then you will take the ownership of that accountability. But to be very clear with them that there is this line that if you don't get what you need up to this line, then kind of all bets are off. And I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable with having that conversation because in many cases, designers or heads of design in corporations feel like they're walking on eggshells anyway.
Yeah. And that's our fault. That is our fault. It's not because design marketing folks are mean. It's not because sales folks are disinterested in design. Everyone is interested in what's going to provide the most value. Once you prove that, and you quantify it, then believe me, people will take responsibility, will follow your direction and allow you the responsibility for owning that process. Unless you do that, unfortunately, you're going to be either lucky by joining an organization that has already had someone that proved its value, or you're going to fall victim of the head cuts and the cost savings that design is falling victim to. Beware the high cost of saving money. Beware the high cost of saving money. Bring that one to your next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm asking you for more money. I'm asking you for more time because I can quantify the value of that investment and prove to you that it's going to generate more value. And therefore, let's make that investment together. I'm right behind you there. If not, I'll do the best job that I can, but I won't be held accountable for the results. That's just a tool you should stick in your back pocket, not just for internal management, but for consultancies as well. Yeah, I know we've worked together for 10 years, and the last proposal I wrote for you had an extra 0 on it. That was the last proposal I wrote for one of my biggest clients at Wallace Church. That's when I knew it was time to leave the consultancy industry the way it is structured today.
Well, that leads me to a great segue.
Yeah.
You've come from 30 years in a agency environment working with very large clients. You're still working with large clients, but you're doing it in a way that is a smaller consultancy model, a scalable partnership consultancy model. And I talk a lot about this on my channel about how the agency landscape is changing, and we've talked about this down at some conferences as well, about how large agencies are starting to get out of step with what companies and clients need. There's a level of flexibility that clients need, speed that clients need, simplicity and process that they're looking for. And all of these things are driving a decentralization of kind of agency of record type relationships that large client side organizations have. So you've made this transition from running your own agency to being a consultant in a partnership type of thing. There are a lot of people, and we know that the landscape of the working world, particularly in design, is moving from full-time employment in a corporation or an agency to much higher level of freelancing and independent consultants. Talk a little bit about your mind shift and how you made that transition and what that's felt like.
Yeah, and it began with that experience where a client for many, many years told me that my proposal was literally 10 times more expensive than the next proposal in line, and I think 11 times more expensive than the least expensive proposal. And it was exactly the same efforts we had done a year before. So I knew that corporations had inexorably changed. They're not going back. Never again will we have the $200,000 or $300,000 design budget. It's just not going to happen. I think we've all been 3G'd to a point where anything that can be outsourced is outsourced. Anything that can be cut to its absolute minimum has been cut. And now we're asking for bloods from stones. And we're not going to be able to achieve that. I don't think that clients want to pay for overhead anymore. I don't think they want beautiful studios. I don't think they need a back office. I don't think there's value in account management. I don't think there's value in a 70-person organization with 20 or 30 of those people sitting on their hands, because you can't keep everybody busy every moment of every day. And that money has to come from somewhere. So I've broken away from that, as others, like yourself, Philip, have done, to become more entrepreneurial, to work as a ringleader, and to synthesize the efforts of a monolith of organizations, from branding and advertising and sales promotion and merchandising and social media, and orchestrate them to ensure that the consumer is engaged by the same message at every touch point. I am doing some of the strategy work. I'm leading the visual language for that, the look and feel of that. But I'm working with outside consultancies, individuals that I've worked with for 15 or 20 years who I know can do the job, but at a significantly faster and a significantly lower number. Now, even though my proposals confidentially are coming in much
confidentially
less,
to our thousands of viewers.
Yeah. My margins are higher than they were back when I ran a leading design consultancy. I'm making more money on an hourly basis. I'm making more money per the efforts I'm leading, even though my budget is less, because I have none of those back elements. I have none of that back office stuff or any of that baggage that comes along with running a consultancy. I think to a great extent that's where design consulting is moving. And we might want to embrace that, certainly not for every organization, but certainly for some of them, or certainly not for every project within every organization, but certainly for some projects within every organization, where, again, we can prove the value of integration and the value of paying less money, but having more impact with senior level people who are actually doing your work.
Well, and I think that that's one of the major points and advantages. I mean, even when I was at PepsiCo and hiring out projects, I was giving large global projects to much smaller consultancies because of the fact that I knew that I could get extremely senior level people like yourself who have a network of other extremely senior level accomplished people to work on a project, give me, super stellar quality work, but do it in half the time for half the money because they're not supporting this massive overhead of a studio in Manhattan or some staff that's currently possibly sitting on their hands. Yep. So in your partnerships, are you finding, because of the way that the industry is moving, are you finding you have a greater number of partners, possible partners to work with, because more people are acting independently and aren't kind of sequestered behind the walls of an agency or a corporation?
Yeah, I mean, some of our clients still have agencies of record, and that's fine. So in those cases, I'm going directly to the innovation side of the business. And that's more interesting to me personally. I mean, I'm at a place in my life, and I'm very fortunate to be here, where I only get to work on the project that I really fall most in love with. And we all do more for love than money. So I really want to engage in those assignments that have the biggest impact and the most interesting work. Innovation is a great place for that to start. I think there's great value in an agency of record relationship with a heritage brand. Some cases, those consultants have more knowledge about that brand than the marketing folks do, who change on and off those brands every 36 months. So, I think that there's opportunities in every organization for those assignments where thinking differently and doing something in a unique way that, again, intends to prove its value has impact even in this post 3G world.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is because a lot of my viewers are entrepreneurs or people who are working with startups, you recently signed on as the chief marketing officer of Tech Holdings, which is in the cannabis space. And so talk a little, that obviously is a entirely new category, which is full of a lot of moving and shaking in terms of opportunity, but also I think just white space in terms of how things could conceivably even be done. So talk a little bit about your decision to jump into that industry and also kind of what you feel like you can bring to it with fresh eyes to an extent.
Yeah. So a quick story. When I ran Wallace Church, I would walk through the art department and ask the designers who were sitting on their hands, what would be the one thing you'd most love to do? And somebody would say, oh my God, I want to work in the cosmetics industry. I had no expertise in the cosmetic industry, so we did a cosmetics project, and then I could go out and sell something. One individual came back and always said, I want to work in the cannabis industry. And I said, Kevin, that doesn't make sense to me right now. It's illegal. It's just not on brand for us. And Kevin Sams left Wallace Church shortly after I did, founded his own firm. I became involved in the cannabis industry through his insights. And oh my word, it's like the Wild West meets Prohibition meets the Gold Rush all concurrently. There are dozens and dozens of brands out there, but our industry has dramatically underserved that industry. Mm-hmm. These are folks who are more advocates around cannabis. They're not necessarily marketers. Their nephews have been doing their branding. I went to the MJ BizCon, Marijuana Business Convention, and found that there were dozens upon dozens of brands that desperately needed some senior level thought leadership and how to make them more compelling to the industry. One of those potential people became a client and now my partners in Quigley's. I made an investment in Tech Holdings, and now I am the chief marketing officer of Tech Holdings. Quigley's Cannabis Shot, one of our first brands on the marketplace right now. There are a number of next generation products we're working on, true innovations in the industry, which I'm really excited about. Next time we chat, I'll be able to fill you in on some of those insights that are hitting the marketplace now. Cool. It's really, really fun and fascinating.
I'm excited to hear about that. One of the things we're going to do is, you had talked about design ROI. One of the things we want to do is we want to make available one of Rob's white papers, which is very influential in the industry around design ROI. And I'm talking about the right one, correct?
So I'm going to share with Philip and then share with you a paper that gives you the methodology that I've been using for now close to 25 years, and some of the data that comes from that methodology. Please use that. Please report back to me when you have used it, how the data has affected, what the results are, because I'm looking to compile those results. Also, please go to the Design Management Institute's website. It's dmi.org/value. There you will find all the work that I did in co-chairing the value project with DMI, where we weren't just looking at design's impact on a project level, we were looking at design's impact on an organizational level as well. How profitable are organizations that become more design-minded? Those are the tools that you can take to your executive management or to your clients and prove the value of being more design-centric and design thinking focused in the organization.
Yeah, so anyone watching, I would highly recommend reading that, because I think that is the ROI piece is a little more complex, but for designers who are in a corporation or agency, being able to talk about in a knowledgeable way how design as a discipline has really been moving companies and to be more successful, and to be able to, cite specific examples of that to your executive management can be really helpful in getting budgeting, getting headcount, all of those wonderful things, because no one can argue with success, right?
Yeah.
So this has been great. Thank you so much, Rob. I want to close with just a little bit of personal stuff. Do you have a personal manifesto that you live by? Is there any kind of catchphrase or something that comes to mind that you try that drives you?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before. We all do more for love than money. And if you don't love this industry, you don't belong in it, because we're not making as much money as we should be. And that hurts my feelings. And that betrays the integrity of what we do. There are organizations who are agreeing to go along with this mandate to get blood from a stone and to do work that is valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars for a pittance, a single-digit percentage of that. And I think if we accept that in the industry, that's what the industry will become. We will all become outsourced. We will all become crowdsourced. And we no longer will have the ability to do our best work. Don't let your love for design get in the way of doing the best thing for the design industry, which is to quantify it and prove its value and be compensated based on that income and that value that you're providing. That will elevate design thinking, that will elevate design-centric organizations, that will provide more impact in the industry from its very onset, from the schools and the organizations that support it. I'm a mentor at the Masters in Branding program at SVA, and those kind of organizations and training the best thinking, not just for designers, but for future leaders of companies, is how we're going to change the culture of design and make design's impact that much more valuable.
That's an amazing point. And also for the people who watch, many of whom are designers who are looking for the next step or how to up their game, possibly become a creative director or some sort of stage in management and design, that is the kind of thing that people really need to listen to, is to begin to improve their understanding of the business side and how business reacts with design and how those two things fit together, because being able to speak that language is what will elevate your career and standing in your own company or agency, but also will enable you to place a higher value on what it is that you do. And so, as Rob said, we all want to get paid more for what we're already doing. So,
yes.
Rob, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it. And Rob, again, is managing partner of Best in Breed Branding Consortium, and the link to his website and hopefully his email address will be in the show notes. So if you'd like to reach out to Rob for any reason, please do. And we'll also make a link to that, to the ROI white paper in the show notes as well. So again, thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate your time.
I'm really delighted, my friend. Thank you for all you do for the industry.
Thank you.